Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jillian here, and today I am coming to you with a new series that I'm going to make on my channel called What's It Like? What's It Like is going to be more of an educational series and also just a series to give people like an outlet to relate to people in general. You know, it's always nice to have someone you can relate to. So for example, some of the videos I will be doing in the future will be what's it like living with depression? What's it like living with schizophrenia? What's it like being a nurse? What's it like having an eating disorder? What's it like going to school for psychology? What's it like having a drug addiction? What's it like just anything you can think of. I want to talk about everything, but in particular these more taboo topics because I want to reduce stigma and just start a conversation about, you know, what's it like living with all these things, because at the end of the day we all are people and we all have our individual struggles. So what I will be doing, I'll be the one interviewing people. So I have a couple already in line with people I'm going to talk to about what's it like and then their situation. But if you guys have any suggestions of ones you want to know, or maybe something that you have and you just want to find someone to relate to, let me know. Today, the one we are going to be doing is with Kai, and it's going to be what's it like growing up in Hawaii. Before I start the video, I just want to give a quick shout out to my lovely nephews and nieces. Hi Jace, hi Gage, hi Emerson, hi Corbin, hi Amelia, hi Mila. I love you guys so much, and I miss you guys, and I hope to see you soon. And this video is dedicated to you in this whole series so you guys can learn what's it like for all these things. Without further ado, let's get started with what's it like living in Hawaii. Now let's switch the camera around. Hello everyone. Today we are here with our first episode of What Is It Like? And we are welcomed with the best guest ever, Kai Lidgate.
Yes, hello.
Today the question is going to be, what is it like growing up in Hawaii, specifically Kauai? So do you want to just give us some background information before talking about what's it like growing up in Hawaii?
Yeah, so my family has quite deep roots in Hawaii, and my great-great-grandfather moved to Hilo in 1853 and started Hilo Ironworks, which was a surveying company, and they built docks, and they surveyed the first electrical power distribution systems in Hawaii. And then my great-grandfather moved to Kauai after being born in Hilo, and he was a minister and a botanist, and so he would discover many different plants and lived in Hawaii for his whole life. And his son ended up moving to the East Coast, and so some of my family is in the East Coast of the United States, and then others in Hawaii. But my father only moved to Hawaii in 1993, and that was after I was born. So I wasn't born there, but I moved there when I was about one, from Maryland. And so there was a big hurricane in 1992, and that's why we ended up moving out there in 93 to help my aunt rebuild her house. And it was kind of a difficult time in Hawaii, and I think that was part of why my parents wanted to move over there, but also because I was a child and they thought, oh, it's be a nice place to raise a kid, right? And they were a bit older, so they were ready to retire, and they thought this is a good place to retire and have a kid and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so all my earliest memories are in Hawaii. I don't remember being, one, I guess, in the East Coast, but I'm glad that they decided to move there, because it's what better place to grow up than a tropical island, right? I think. But then the reality is that, like anywhere you live, there's always every place has its ups and downs. There's no perfect. People are like, "Oh my God, you grew up in Hawaii, or like you're from Hawaii. It must be it's paradise," and it is paradise. But it still has all the issues that you have in any place, and I think the school system in Hawaii is notoriously one of the worst in the United States, but I did go to a private school, but I think that a lot of, especially foreigners, not so much now, but in the 80s and 90s, like white people are kind of like, they call them haoles, and there's a little bit of there's quite a bit of racism in Hawaii, but it also has to do with the history and the colonization and all that. Um, but in the public schools, yeah, there's a lot of fights, and there were drugs and domestic violence and things like that. So it's not all butterflies and flowers and beautiful beaches. I mean, it's got its problems for sure. But I mean, I think overall, everyone in Hawaii has this kind of aloha spirit, like they call it, and everyone's kind of pretty happy because life is good, right? When you can go to the beach every day and jump in the warm ocean and go surfing, and there's so much natural wonder there that it's hard not to really appreciate life. And but growing up there, I wanted to see the city, and I wanted adventure, and I wanted to know what was beyond the horizon, because it is quite a small island after all, and it's a small town and a place that you want to, there's it's not much is going to change there. So I figured, what's the you know why not go to the mainland and go to another country and see what's out there? And luckily, my parents were people that traveled the world, and they're very supportive of me, and they helped me go to college, and so that's how I ended up moving here to the city, and I love it here too. But after years and years in the city, you realize how good you have it. Growing up or living in Hawaii and having the beach and having all that natural wonder. Um, but I'd say growing up, I mean, it was great because as a kid, I could just go exploring and be outside all day, and we'd hitchhike around, and it's a very safe place. Like as a kid, I'd hitchhike and bike down the street, and uh, I would walk around barefoot, and I was kind of like a little wild child, right? But I think that what was a little tough was you're kind of isolated. It's not like you have the neighborhoods like you have in suburbs where everyone's close together. So we had our little house and there were no other kids around. So I was a little bit lonely, and being a single child, it was tough to go see my friends because there's no bus system, and the roads aren't designed in a way that's easy to bike. So my parents would have to drive me over to my buddies' houses, and that could be on the other side of the island. So as much as it's a small place, it's still pretty tough to get around unless you have a car. So I mean, everything changed once I was about 17. I got my driver's permit, and then you can go anywhere, and it's awesome. And but yeah, like growing up in Hawaii is a dream come true, I think. And I would say, as long as you you get to go to a good school, because a lot of kids there don't end up going to university after school, and they kind of just end up surfing or hanging out, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's not really like academically a place.
How would you perceive that your teenage years in Hawaii, would you say they were the way they were because you grew up in Hawaii? Did you have some unique experiences that you think would be unique to Hawaii? I said Hawaii a lot in that sentence, but like, do you think, it was easier making friends, or do you think people were more open minded over there, more liberal compared to other places?
I think, like anything, you are who you are, no matter what, and like where you grew up, and you have your soul and who you are. But of course, your environment definitely shapes who you are as well, like where you grew up and how your parents raised you, and all the people you hang out with, and all this stuff. And I mean, definitely to a degree, Hawaii is a very spiritual place, and I think there's a lot of hippie type people that moved there in the 70s, and so it has that whole side of it, but it also has a conservative side, uh, and I think you see that as well. But I think overall, there's a lot of open-minded people and very alternative type of people that live in Hawaii. So there's a lot of that influence, and I think my parents were quite liberal people, and quite people that let me go off and do whatever. and so I didn't need to be supervised very much, and I had that freedom as a child to just go, meet all kinds of interesting people. And I think, yeah, growing up in Hawaii, as there's not as many young people, you're limited to how many, like, I mean, some friends of mine, they grew up in a place where it was easier to mingle with friends and hang out and make friends. But where I grew up, most of my friends, they were like little isolated groups. So we, I would hang out with buddies here or there, but not so much like big, you know, we wouldn't hang out all together at once all the time. Except when I got older, we'd have parties and we'd organize stuff like that. And I think it was really cool because in Hawaii, you're always people come from all around the world, so we'd make friends and like meet people at the beach and just some people that were on vacation and show them around and like drink and smoke weed, and so I think we had a lot of fun and we got up to a lot of interesting things and like would just go explore and go camping and just do whatever we wanted, really.
Is it true that everybody that was raised in Hawaii surfs, or is that a stereotype?
No, that's definitely a stereotype. Like everybody, you know, knows somebody who surfs or boogie boarding is also big. But I wouldn't say like everybody's a surfer and like if you're a surfer, people know it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I surf." But like you wouldn't there's a big community of people that it's just not really part of their culture, that like they just don't surf and like they don't care, and like maybe you have like kind of nerd culture there too, and people that just don't like the outdoors, even though, and it's just like here Vancouver's known to be a very outdoorsy place where everybody loves the outdoors, but then some people they're totally disconnected from that and like they prefer to stay at home and just do more introspective kind of things. um, but yeah, I would say not that many people surf as you'd think. uh, but I definitely surfed quite a bit because my dad, he was really big on surfing, and so he would always try and push me to surf as much as I can, and he'd give me surfboards, and I liked surfing, but I would never say that I was really like super into it. Like I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I need to go surfing, because I had friends growing up there that like they were addicted to it, right? Like they loved that, and like that's all they wanted to do is surf, and like that's all they thought about, and their whole life revolved around surfing, right? So there's different levels to how much people get into it, like anything, like any hobby. Um, but yeah, it's a great place to learn how to surf. It's, I'd say, the best in the world surfing on Kauai specifically. Yeah.
Would you say that people have this picture perfect image in their heads of what it would be like to grow up in Hawaii, or just Hawaii in general?
Yeah, I mean,
Compared to like,
people. Depends where you go. I think on the west coast in Canada, a lot of people have gone to Hawaii because it's quite close and it's not too expensive to fly there. But I mean, when I lived in Germany and going to other parts of the world, like the East Coast, United States too, and Europe, like people, they've never been to Hawaii. A lot of them, and they're like, "Oh my God, Hawaii! Like, do people live in grass shacks?" And like, the hula. Like, they just know what they see on TV and all the kind of stereotypical stuff. And that's like anywhere in the world, I guess. When you ask people about a place, and they only really they have these ideas of what a place is like, and what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's like these are these archetypal sort of ideas. Yeah.
would you say it's very romanticized?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Hawaii's but it's almost in like a corny way. Like when people imagine Hawaii, they imagine like a tourist with like slacks on and flip flops, like very casual, and almost like it's kind of like cringy, right? When you see like that stereotype steel guitar music, and uh, it's almost fake seeming, and what they've done in a way is they've taken Hawaiian culture and commercialized it, And that's kind of a travesty in a way. You know, it's if you ask Hawaiians when they're like, in a way, their culture was taken and commercialized, and you know, that's just what you see on TV, but that's not like the real Hawaii, right? It's like that with a lot of indigenous populations where it's hard to describe, but it's kind of, you know, we rely on tourism, and so they have to kind of play up a lot of things to make people interested in coming to Hawaii. And so we almost a lot of people are anti-tourism, but and the reality is that that's what makes our economy, and without it, it'd be pretty tough. So a part of it, you kind of have to sell yourself a little bit, I think. Sell the Hawaiian culture out to the world. Yeah.
What was your favorite Hawaiian dish growing up?
Ooh.
Favorite food?
I'd say like the plate lunches, because they have amazing plate lunches there, and that plate lunch is it comes in different variations, but usually it has rice. It's a staple there. You'd have some rice, and you have some poke, which is sashimi, like cut up raw fish, like ahi, and then you'd have kalua pork or kalua cabbage, which is it's basically take pork, like a whole pig, and they put it in an earth oven with a bunch of spices, and that's what you call like a luau. So you cook the pig for probably 12 or 14 hours underground with all these things, and it becomes almost like pulled pork, but it's a little juicier. And then they mix it with cabbage, and that's very staple there. And then they have poi, obviously, which is like mashed up taro root, and they masticate it, is what they call it, they hit it with like a beater, and then let it ferment a little bit, and it's kind of a sour pudding. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's really, you know, really good, but I definitely have a bit sentimental about it because you can't get it anywhere else. And then mochi, I love mochi. I'd say a lot of the food in Hawaii is a fusion of different cultures. So you have Japanese, Filipino, Portuguese, German, like British. So you have all these people that came together, and it's a melting pot of all these cultures. So a lot of the cuisine reflects that. And yeah, good food.
Okay, I think that is the majority of the questions we have for you today. Do you have any last remarks or anything you want to add?
Aloha. That's the shaka. That's how you say, "Ho guy, what's up, brah?" You go shaka. It's just what we do. Hang loose. Mahalo.